Hello, 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 hello. I don't know. You get range today. So today I'm gonna do that thing that I mentioned the last time I was live over here when I was like, oh, like let's do a thing. So I'm like shuffling up these cards. I'm using the Tarot of the Abyss, the Witch's Tarot, and the Mystical Shaman Oracle cards. And I'm going to be doing a modified. Basically, it's not the spread. It's not really the spread, but it looks. I'm basing it off of the layout from the Warrior spread and the Google Drive link in the description box for all of the spreads that I built live. I still want to find a way to like link back to those videos so that if like you pull up the spread, you can reference the video and get an idea of what some of this means. Um, but this is when I already annotated it. Hey, Eve. Yeah, what? I feel like I haven't seen you in forever. So I did some notes. And so it was like a few weeks ago now. It had to be a weekend. And I was in one of those, I need to get up and be productive, but I'm so tired. I don't want to move. Watching the Try Guys video and how they were doing diving. And the diving instructor was taking them through it. And he was like, when you dive into the water, you want to do this so that your hands break the surface tension. So it's not like, jumping into an empty pool. It's not like hitting cement. And so I was like, oh, like I want to do something where like there's something that we use to break the surface tension. And then like when you're going off of the diving board, there's like you use your feet to like either it bounces or you just like jump off. And so you use like your legs and whatever to like get off and then you go into the water. And the way I was envisioning it was like the warrior spread, but sort of flipped. So like we would dive, like first we would jump off and then we would dive in. I mean, I guess, no, yeah. First we would, yeah. um, and so it's like you can see 1, 1, 3, 6 is going into the water, 6 being our hands breaking the surface, and then 5, 4, 2 being jumping off of the diving board with our feet like grounding us and then like how we launch ourselves, right? So then they're going to, hey Holly, how you doing? um so they're kind of going to correspond a little bit, 6 and 5, 1 and 2, because when you're jumping off, like this is the feet at the bottom, this is the diving board, right? Your feet are at the bottom, your head is at the top, but when you're diving into the water, your head is at the top and your feet are like up in the air. So that's what we're going to do today. And then I'm going to use the mystical shaman to sort of like represent. I'm going to use the mystical shaman oracle card to represent our entry point into the water. And then I'm going to pull the tarot of the abyss around it to kind of sort of give us like a veil or like that surface, the surface of the water, right? And then I'm going to use the witch's tarot to be basically the warrior spread. Now, in the video, he mentioned that when they're training, they'll bubble up the water to break the surface tension so that it's like you're jumping into a cushion rather than onto concrete. And so that's kind of sort of what the mystical shaman oracle card will be, like the cushion into that energy. And we'll see. As I'm shuffling the tarot of the abyss, the 3 of swords, the 7 of swords and the 3 of swords immediately just came out. And it's interesting that the Seven of Swords is here because I feel like I was just talking about the whole Princess of Pentacles, Queen of Pentacles, King of Pentacles, Seven of Swords story in the Witch's Tarot. And then the Seven of Swords is right here with the Three of Swords. And this is the more masculine Three of Swords. There's the masculine Three of Swords and the feminine Three of Swords. So very much looking like the same guy. But at least like with the Three of Swords, we get a little bit of his backstory. It's from pain. Hurt people type of energy. And then the King of Wands is at the bottom of the deck. But this King of Wands, honestly, this King of Wands is making me think of the Hierophant in the Mystical Dream Tarot. And he was the one that was like in the blue cloak and he was sitting like that by the fire in the last video I did, right? And the fire was the Eight of Cups, but in the space of like air, or was that earth? It was the Nine of Wands. Because all the elements were mixed up. And he's pulling this into an infinity sign. This makes me think of Luke's ex Tenebris, Light from Darkness, which is the Hermit in the Spirit Keeper's Tarot. So I'll just do it. Both of you, anybody in the chat right now, pick one or two, left or right. 1 equals left, 2 equals right. And then y'all will choose which one I go for. Oof, 2 and 1. 2 and 1 and 1. Sandra breaks the tie. How you doing, Sandra? Sorry, Eve. So we get the Vitruvian edition of the Spirit Keeper's Tarot. 2 was the Revelations edition. I'm gonna look as this deck is before and after the Hermit, just to sort of see what energies are around it. So I kind of sort of came out of the broom closet at work. So when I was talking about where my Stranger Things deck is, and I was like, "Oh, I don't have it right now. It's a whole story I'll get into at some other time." I took it to work because I have this one coworker who seems cool, who I felt like I can open up to. And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I saw this Stranger Things tarot deck on Amazon, and I was like, "Ooh, gotta get it right because it's Stranger Things." We were talking about Stranger Things. And then she was like, "Oh, I've seen some decks, but like, I've never like really got one, but I always like the illustrations." And I was like, "Oh, like I got this one in the Dungeons and Dragons tarot because there's somebody else who plays D&D." And I was like, "Oh, they had this on Amazon, so I got it." And I was like, "I kind of know." And so she was like, "Oh, I always wanted a reading," or she asked me if I would read her or whatever. So I read her. And then, of course, the other coworkers came in and they're all just like sitting there listening to me as I read her. And then one of them was like, "I love your voice as like you're doing this." And I was like, "You're not supposed to tell me that you're listening." And she was like, "Well, I'm not like listening to the words. I'm just listening to your voice." And the other coworker was like, "Oh, I'm listening to his words." And I'm like, "Okay, well, anyway." So yeah, that happened. I would say, well, it's something that I've been entertaining the idea of, like, how do I sort of like breach this? And it just kind of sort of happened. So I ended up leaving the deck at work. So yeah, that's why I didn't have it. I almost brought it home, but I was like, not yet. Here is our oof. I have found our hermit. Yeah. I was like, "Oh, I'm out of the broom closet. I'm a witch." I'm just kidding. I wouldn't call myself a witch because all I do is like tarot. I'm a card witch. That's it. I anything else, I'm like, oops. I got crystals. I don't. I have sage now. I haven't. I got incense, but I ain't. I got candles, but they're still not lit. So anyway, Luke's ex tenebris, light from darkness, with the star in the urn. What's that non Uro? Lucio non Uro. I know Lucio was light. Luke's Lucas. Luke and Luke. There I am, you also may be, as in the book with a song. This is our Luke's ex tenebris. I it's been a long time, and honestly, like if my coworkers weren't my coworkers, I wouldn't. Like the one that I talked to, like because there's a class being run at the Met. I told y'all about the class, and I was like, I was thinking about doing it, and I was at work, and I was like, hey, so I'm thinking about doing this, and she was like, oh, go for it. It sounds fun or whatever. Like, you could at least like try. And so because she was supportive of that at the metaphysical store, I was like, oh, okay, like, you know. I was like, oh, I might just be like, oh, I got it because whatever, but I don't know anything about it. And then she was like, yeah. And of course, I was a little nervous, but after I got into it, I was like, whatever. And then I was like, oof. So anyway, it happened. Saturn in Pisces, Mars in Gemini. That's a Saturn Mars square. Right now, Saturn is in Aquarius, and Mars is in Gemini. Is Mars in Gemini right now? Is Mars currently in Gemini? Hello? Let's see. Chart details. Mars is in Gemini right now. Okay. So it's in between the Eight of Cups and the Nine of Swords. The Hunt. Three of Swords, Seven of Swords, Nine of Swords, Eight of Cups, King of Wands. Like the defector is walking away from this Nine of Swords energy. We see a constellation. I can't remember what that constellation is. I mean, it's 5 stars, so it looks like it could be the Big Dipper. It's 6 stars, but it still looks like it could be the Big Dipper. So this is where we're sort of sitting. But this King of Wands down here, I guess he's in the darkness, right? And there's this fire here, and he's taking in that fire. You can see the infinity sign forming. So it's like that's what Luke's light from darkness is. Being in the Nine of Swords, but being able to like walk out of that or to make it out of that. So whatever this is, it does not feel like an easy path. But the King of Wands probably wasn't just given a throne, right? Especially not in the Wands. Maybe in like the Swords, probably in the Pentacles, maybe also two in the Cups, but in the Wands, in the suit of Wands, even in the suit of Swords, Pentacles and Cups, maybe it's inherited. But with Swords and like especially in Wands, it feels like that's a throne that somebody like fought for. You know what I mean? So let's get back into shuffling. It almost makes me think of the envy card in, and it's because of this, because of how it's illustrated. It makes me think of the envy card and the energy oracle cards. But there is a way to escape the darkness. Oh my gosh! Can I stop getting cards, please? I'm just trying to shuffle. Ooh. The world flipped over, and the Ace of Cups is at the bottom of the deck with the Fool behind it. And then the Ace of Swords behind the Fool. And the reason why I pulled that is because in the Ace of Cups and in the Ace of Swords, there's like this fluid, flowy sort of energy. And then it's like in the clouds and stuff here. Well, I guess her hair is blowing too. Ace of Swords, Ace of Cups, and the Fool under the world. I know the world came out. So that's an eye of God, an eye of the divine right here. So it's reading like there's something within us or something within you that the divine sees as like still in the womb or as an infant, and it's trying to mature that. But to get that to mature, maybe it leads us to this. So maybe it's like we find ourselves in a situation that we reach out to the divine for, and like maybe usually the divine helps, but it seems like spirit is quiet or assistance isn't necessarily coming, or it's not coming in the way that it used to, or it's not coming in a way that we would really want it to. But what it's doing in some way, it's like it's empowering us to make this trip and to make this journey on our own, or to have a little bit more, to be a little bit more active in that process, because that's going to be, did I just put it in the middle? Oh, yeah, I did. And I opened right to it. Nice. That's going to be what matures this inside of us. It's like if it's always done for us, then we'll never learn to do it ourselves type of energy. But with the Three of Swords and the Seven of Swords, it's proving to be kind of difficult. Maybe it's easy to feel, maybe it was, oh my gosh, easier to feel abandoned or left out or cast aside. Four of Swords and Six of Pentacles. Four of Swords flipped out. So with the Four of Swords by itself, it's kind of somber. It's like in this context, how I'm reading it right now today, this is like one of the grimmest Four of Swords cards I've seen. Because it feels like it's reading like, oh, there is this peace, but it feels like, it's an eternal peace. Like the person who was wearing this armor is gone. They're buried. The war is over for them. And it doesn't feel like they were the victor. But because of the Six of Pentacles at the bottom, it feels like they just like maybe they went AWOL. And there's a wall of stone or brick, a wall of brick. Maybe they went AWOL. They abandoned that. And so that makes it not as bad. Right. It's less of a forgotten soldier, forgotten war. Nobody even knows what people were fighting for and why so many lives were lost. Or it's one of those things where at some point you realize how insignificant something was and how you devoted and invested so much time, energy, effort into it, and you live more life or something else happens, and then it's like it didn't even necessarily really matter. But with the Six of Pentacles, it's like we realize before it reaches that point. So before we do the thing that we can't come back from, or before we give all that we have to give, or before we make the sacrifice that we can't unmake, we realize like, hey, this isn't for me. We walk away. But it's like in this in between point where we don't necessarily have direction yet. So this is feeling like the person that abandoned their post. This is feeling like a friend of the gatekeeper from yesterday, or a gatekeeper who's going to come in and offer an opportunity. Now, it's hard to say if this opportunity is going to be like it. Like, this is the new thing that you're going to do for the rest of your life, or this is your purpose, this is your mission. Or if this opportunity is going to be like something to like get you back on your feet and to get you moving again. So I would say there's just an energy here of like, be careful of sort of attaching more to something than maybe what it can give you. It's a little reboundy, which again, like, it's fine, because we all sometimes we need something to like put things back into perspective, or sometimes we need something. This is almost reading like Venus, like how when Venus was that legitimate business person and she felt not herself because all of a sudden it's like her charms aren't working or whatever. And so she went to Mars. She went to the one person that always wanted her. And that it was kind of reading like Mars was like, you know what, Venus, like, I'm not doing it anymore. You really want somebody or something else. And when things don't go your way and you need to feel like the one that nobody can resist, you come to me, the one person who never resisted you before. Well, things change. I changed and I'm not doing it. And so then Venus would have really spiraled out, because the one thing that she had, the one sure thing that she knew would get her feeling like herself again, it wisened up. Mars was on its own path, doing its own thing, working with Eris to like evolve, and working with Saturn to like, and where is it? Oh, that's these Mars and Gemini, Saturn and Pisces. So like, not necessarily the energy, but up here it's like Mars had its own challenges to overcome to reach that point where it matured, or it grew into whatever's meant for it, and not just waiting around for a Venus to have a bad day and like come back. You know what I mean? But anyway, yeah, it's almost feeling like that for some reason. Well, because of that legitimate business person storyline. Um, but it feels like in that, and again, it feels like for Venus, she doesn't hit that point that often, and when she does, Mars was always there to pull her out of it. But because of that, there's something that she never done, like she never had to really sit in that. And so because of that, she was never able to get to the root of why she feels the way she feels in the first place. It was always left like uncovered because she didn't have to dig that deep. You know what I mean? But now that she digs that deep, and that's the world card, that's the seed of the thing, that's the infant, that's the thing in the womb, that the divine sees, that it's encouraging us to like, I know things are difficult right now, but keep digging. Because when you expose it, when you work through it, as it grows and heals and matures and develops, this whole cycle with the Ouroboros, this whole thing that like you revisit every now and then, like, you're not going to have to do this anymore, because you're not going to have that core wounding or that pain or that trauma that dictates your life in that way. But it's also feeling like something that, again, it's like you adjust to, right? You don't take someone, it's like one of those TV shows or movies or books, I guess, when it's like this person was raised in a basement or in the underground subway system, and they're not used to sunlight or oxygen, like abundance of oxygen. And so like you have to introduce them bit by bit to like more and more light, to more and more oxygen, to the point where they can live on the surface and their body doesn't shut down out of shock. You know what I mean? So this is, as I'm like going through this, it almost feels like it's reading more of what the word, like it feels like it's reading as like crawling out of the ground a little bit more so than like diving or whatever. And again, it's like I'm just trying to get a shuffle on this deck, and it cards won't stop coming out. But that's what this is. It's reading like that's what that's feeling like. And again, it's like ultimately, maybe it's because like the divine knows what it is that we really want, who we want to be, how we want to be, the freedom, flexibility, or independence that we want, and the divine knows what's possible. It can make it a little easier to be one of those like, I'm doing this for your own good, right? Like I'm not helping you for your own good. I'm not pulling you out of this situation for your own good. You know, I'm just gonna be done, and then we're gonna move on to the other ones because I'll never be finished at this rate. The Fool just came out, but I think we're concluding this. And it's funny that Eve said, "Use that shovel, girl," because this feels like Venus after this. Oh my gosh, the Phoenix, and this Ace of Wands. This is literally Venus after she emerges, and it's because I was like, she's like climbing out of the grave or whatever. After she emerges this brand new energy. And what is a world? What is a pantheon with this Venus? What is a pantheon with that Mars and with that Eris? You know what I mean? What is a pantheon that isn't gods that are having the same petty human issues of like whatever and wreaking havoc on people and toying with the lives of people because they're all powerful and because they can. Now, there are some pantheons, I'm sure, that aren't the Greco-Roman pantheon where they just doing whatever, and we just have to like put up with it. But it's like it's gorgeous the space that she comes out in. And then it's look, the wand becomes the rod. So anyway, love that. We're gonna put that deck down. I'm gonna shuffle the one that I'm actually pulling, and then we'll be like, okay, let's go. But I love that that came out to conclude that little whatever. That was just the pre whatever. So I don't know if the spread is gonna clarify that, if we're gonna break that down a little more, or if all of that was like, this is the prelude. This is everything that needs to be. Again, it was this energy getting out of the darkness itself, rising from the underworld herself rather than being pulled out. Um, I don't know if like that's the epilogue. Wait, no, the prologue. I don't know if that was the prologue. There you go. And if this will be the epilogue or whatever. So. I mean, if you look at the Warrior spread, it is set in the cemetery, so we are on brand. It's on theme. Ooh. Oh my gosh, a card just flipped over. Oh. I thought it was the Beauty Way for a split second. Okay. It's the medicine wheel. The bottom of the deck is the ancient ones. So that's why I was like, oh. But our medicine wheel came out. I'm gonna get the cards and then I'm gonna use a little bit of techno wizardry to show you. Oh gosh. See, it's a good thing I did this. Because this deck is still talking. Justice. Oh, I hope the world comes out. If not, I'll show you. So top two cards. Ah, let's go. Sorry. I'm excited. It's fine. Woo! Okay, all right, let me calm down. Okay. So it's reading kind of prologue. So justice flipped out. I took the top two cards and put them to the left of the medicine wheel. The first card is the Fool. That's why I'm like, okay, it's prologue. The second card is the World. When I was like, oh, I hope that World card comes out, because I was looking at this deck and I saw the World and I saw Justice. And I'm looking at Justice, and in her eye, you can see the scales. But I was like, wait, like the eye of Justice looks like the eye on that World card. And that's why I was like, I hope it comes out. And it came out. So that's why I was excited. Um, Justice came out on top of that medicine wheel with all of these other faces in the medicine wheel. And then we have the Fool in the World. So there you go. Now, to the right of this is the Emperor, which is actually the box art for this deck. Is the Emperor and the King of Cups. So Justice, the Fool, the World, the Emperor, and the King of Cups. Like, it's pretty heavy on majors. And there's a nice, like, there isn't a lot of darkness here. It's mostly light. It's pretty much all light, and then the gray of the World card. And like we've seen, like the Seven of Swords, we saw the dark background. Like there are some dark backgrounds in this deck, and it's all light here, which is again, it's reading like everything that came out up until now was like the prologue. That was everything that we need to do, and that's light from darkness, Lucio non uro, or Lux ex tenebris, sorry. And that was this. In this space of darkness, we need to find a way out. We move, we defect. Eight of Cups. The defector in the Eight of Cups with that Four of Swords, and I was like, the person like deserted their post or went AWOL or whatever. The defector was right here, and I didn't even catch that. Because there's something within them was like, if I stay here, gotta go. And you, if this resonates for you, listen. So good on you for getting out when you knew it was time to get out, especially when the next thing, like you didn't even necessarily know what was next. Yeah, I just like saw it because I was like, is that the same eye? And then I was trying to look inside the eye of the World card to see if there was something like the scales on Justice, but I didn't. Can you see the scales? Yeah, you can. In her eye. And it's funny because Justice came out in that spread, didn't it? Yeah, it did. Because I was like, the air energy is Justice. Like it's major arcana air. We get major arcana earth, major arcana fire through Emperor, Aries, or Aries, Mars, or Mars, Aries. Wait, that is Aries. Mars is the tower. So Aries, fire, Libra, Justice, air, Capricorn, Saturn. It's more Saturn, the World, but it's reading Capricorn. And then the King of Cups. And it's funny that the King of Cups is the only non-major here, because when I did that, so that was the reading before last. In the last reading, there was like the only water that was present was in the Two of Summer, because we had like the King of Wands and then the Queen of Swords and the Queen of Pentacles. But I was like, there's no water court card here. And then it was like, oh, the Two of Cups is the water. But now the King of Cups is here. And all of the other energies are major arcana. So 3 of Pentacles. Oh, 3 cards flipped over? Oh, snap. So I'm going to put these 3 in the middle, and then I'm going to pull. So in the spread, red cards came from the bottom. And so I'm going to pull them like that in that order. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6. The Page of Pentacles is at the bottom of the deck again. So when the 7 of Swords came out, and I was like, oh, there's the whole there's the Page of Pentacles, Queen of Pentacles, King of Pentacles, 7 of Swords story in the Witch's Tarot. There she is again at the bottom of the deck. And not only is the Page of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck, the 6 of Cups is here. I just pulled this spread on my other channel, and the 6 of Cups is coming out in the exact same position. The Page of Pentacles is in the exact same position at the bottom of the deck. So, oh, the picture. Let me take a picture of this real quick. I'll put these up here. Give me one moment to techno wizard this onto your screens. Oh my gosh, this is immediate. I love this. Love technology. It does make some things in life easier, and it can be used for nefarious purposes, as many things can. But anyway. So you can't see the medicine wheel in this picture, but it's fine. So this is what the table looks like. So the medicine wheel in Justice is that point where we enter the water, and that's the bubbles that break the surface tension. I mean, it's kind of because Justice is here. Well, because it's the medicine wheel and Justice, and because of the prologue to this. Oh, I'm going to timestamp this real quick. I'm going to say prologue is the 0000. And then I'll say the reading started at like 39 minutes. Oof. Mm. Hey, Eve, can you put that, can you type that for me real quick? Because I only have access to like half of my keyboard. Just like prologue 0000 and then cards at 39 minutes. And then I'll go into the description box after this is over and I'll put it in there. So because of the prologue and everything, with Justice and the medicine wheel being here, it's like it's something that we've done along the way that breaks the surface tension. Now, what's helping us get into that water, the hands as we're diving in, thank you, I appreciate it. The hands as we're diving in to break the surface tension is the Knight of Cups. And that Knight of Cups corresponds to the Moon card. Because, like, when we're standing on the diving board, our hands are in the air. The Knight of Cups and the Moon. What I love about this is the Knight of Cups is offering or is posturing themselves to offer this cup, but the Knight of Cups doesn't know how it's going to be received or if it's going to be received, which is still how it's going to be received. So already it's this like release, because it feels like we can have this thing where it's like, well, I'm not going to do this. It's going to work out. Right. Maybe. Um, oh, look. Oh, snap. So we have the Knight of Cups and the Knight of Wands and Temperance here. And like I've been seeing that like Temperance, at first it would be like fire, temperance, water. Like I remember one time it was like Queen of Cups, Temperance, Queen of Wands. And then it was like fire, temperance. So actually lately, so when I did that, when I came out of the broom closet and I was pulling cards for my coworker, there was a lot of fire that was there, but the card at the bottom of the deck was the Ace of Cups. So it was like somehow all of this fire is going to transition into water, or all of this fire is going to affect the element of water. And I read, because of my reading style and because of how I read, it's like temperance is the energy that bridges this. So let's go see what's like around temperance. What's the energy around temperance? Because all of this fire is going to produce a change in the water somehow. There was also like, I was like, it feels like there's this like breaking point that is like nearing. And so at some point you're going to take a leap. That's the full leap of faith energy. Let's see what's around the Fool. Like if you have been watching me for some time, you probably know like how I read, but that's why I read the way I read. It's like an energy will come forward and I'll be like, oh, well, let's see what's around this energy, because that might determine like if it is the Fool and there's like good cards around it, like, oh, this is a leap of faith that we're ready for. If there are bad cards around, it's like, okay, this leap is going to be a leap. It's going to require some faith. It's going to require some trust, and we might not necessarily feel ready to take it. So that's sort of why I pull the way I pull. Anyway. Is it really? Well, there you go. Glad to help again. Always there to help. What's interesting, this is really interesting actually, because at the bottom we have this Knight of Cups, Knight of Wands energy. At the top, we have, and because I'm using the Witch's Tarot, we have this, the Moon and the shadow side energy. The Fool actually came out in these three cards. It's the Three of Pentacles, the Ten of Pentacles, and the Fool. So we see the Fool again up in the in-between. Um, and then we have Temperance and the Six of Cups together. And we can draw a parallel between Temperance and the Six of Cups, because the Six of Cups carries a lot of nostalgia, the past, and your childhood energy. And so when we're thinking back on the past, that in effect is bridging the present and the past. When we think into the future, that bridges the present and the future. So we can get a little loose and make the Temperance Six of Cups energy fit. What's interesting about this Temperance is, though, there's been a fair share of rainbow bridgy energy. This actually, in a way, it almost speaks back to the Two of Cups that was creating a path through the veil, that bridge that spans the gate, because the rainbow is back here in the back, but the water between those two cups is what creates the bridge here. So it's interesting. because it's almost like this is something that exists outside of that rainbow bridge. But again, I'm surprised to see this. All right, see you, Holly. I'm surprised to see this play out in the way that it plays out. Because, like I said, I just pulled this on the other channel. And on the other channel, I mean, maybe it was just like a different perspective, but it seemed like there was a lot more like assistance, or there was a lot more presence of the divine up spirit over there, where it was like, oh, like you've come this far, we'll take you the rest of the way. But here with the medicine wheel and with this justice and with everything that like the haunt and the defector, like you got to liberate yourself from the darkness. It feels a lot less. It feels a lot more on us as individuals on this side. But maybe that's because of the whole energy meeting energy thing, right? There was something within us that was underdeveloped that the divine saw in this world card. It's underdeveloped. So we have to go through a process of maturing it. And that's what came out in the sun card that was at the bottom of the fairy tarot. On the sun, like riding the horse or the unicorn in the sun card, it wasn't a baby. It was a fully grown fairy man, whatever. It was a mature energy. It wasn't the naked baby on a horse. And because we were seen as this infant still in the womb over here, we couldn't have made it beyond. And so the divine, in some way or another, put us in a position to mature. The Emperor is here and the King of Cups is here to the right. The Emperor and the King of Cups being under that Knight of Cups, Six of Cups, and the shadow side. So on this leg, going into the water, going into the veil, breaching the veil, there could be a lot of hurt, a lot of pain experienced in the past. And with the Knight of Cups, it's like you're being asked to extend the cup anyway. It's like, yeah, maybe every time you did this, it failed horribly, or maybe you were rejected every time in the past, and that's the hurt and pain and trauma that you carry with you. Maybe that's what fueled your shadow side, or it fueled it, like it built up enough fear to try to eclipse or block out some light in the past. Kind of like, man, I wish I could just like, hold up, we might do that. Like with the shadow side. I wish I could just like zoom in. With this shadow side, maybe that's what eclipsed a lot of stuff in the past. And so there were lights that we couldn't even see, or there were so many filters on it, we couldn't see it for what it was. And then it projected this shadow. Like this shadow feels like a projection that wasn't even necessarily there. But because we feared that it was there, our brains made it real. Our brain is the thing that projected it. And it's like, well, what came first? Like the projection of the shadow, or the projection that results from that trauma, or the trauma? And maybe that's this weird fluid Six of Cups bridge between the present and the past. That experience in the past keeps something alive in the present. It intensifies that projection. And it's interesting because that hologram is a trick of the light. And on the other side, the Ten of Cups came out in this deck. But because of the cups in the rainbow, it was like it gave that light weight. Like that was light that we could step on, that we can cross. The Bifrost Rainbow Bridge. But here it's like that same property of like hard light was used to create some kind of nightmare, to create some kind of devil or demon. The shadow side is the devil in this deck. And to not only give it form, but to give it like presence. That is connected to the Knight of Wands. Because this is the side of, let me see. Okay, I feel like I'm gonna stop playing around with this because it's gonna distract me. But that's this side. This side is diving into the water. So the shadow side is up in the air. You can't see my cursor, but the shadow side is our feet up in the air. The Knight of Cups is our hands breaking the surface. On the other side, the Knight of Wands is our feet on the diving board, and the moon being the hands above our head because we haven't jumped into the water yet, right? So the shadow side is corresponding to that Knight of Cups. And so that's almost literally the just do it. I know you're afraid and the projection is still there, or that hologram or whatever is still there. It hasn't gone anywhere. We just have to muster up the courage to do it anyway. Because right now it's like they're cowering and hiding behind. Oof. They're hiding behind like these rocks and stuff. They're putting themselves in dark places to escape this shadowy projection from the light, where they got to just muster up the courage. And it's maybe it's okay. So in them mustering up the courage to face this shadow anyway, and them defecting from the haunt. Because again, this clarified the hermit. That clarified the light from darkness. There's a light born within the darkness. This thing that the divine sees within us that is still forming in the womb, it's light. It's our light. It's the light that lives inside of us. And that's what activates as we come into this Knight of Wands energy to face this shadow side. And the light within us grows bright enough that it's like it interferes with the projection, with this hard light projection that is the shadow. And then it's like at some point it just like disappears. And what's that? It's a scripture in the Bible. It's like greater is he in you than something. I'm going to look it up because I only have half of my keyboard. I'll search it on my phone. It's like the light within you becomes stronger and it disrupts the projection. Greater is he that is within you than something that is within the world. What is it? 1 John 4:4. 4:4, and we got this emperor sitting right here. Greater is he that is in me. Okay. Sorry. Just give me the scripture. Girl, I should have just went to the Bible. Can I get the scripture, please? You, dear children, are from God and have overcome them because the one who is in you is greater than the one who is in the world. 1 John 4:4. Greater is he that is in me. In this passage, the Apostle John is addressing believers as dear children. He is telling the believers that they are from God and have overcome the world. John informs the believers that they are only able to overcome the world because the one who is in them is greater than the one who is in the world. It's very much that energy. It's in that space of overcoming something within. It's like it comes online, it gets connected. And every time I'm talking about how, like, you know, we can call ourselves sovereign and we can do all kinds of stuff. And like, yes, words have power, but if our voice box isn't connected, or if the source of our power isn't online, it's like it's not going to matter. The words we speak are going to fall on a deaf ear, and that deaf ear being the ear of the universe. because there's something within the self that isn't connected. There's something within the self that isn't online. It's like talking into a megaphone that's not even turned on. You know what I mean? It's like a speaker or a radio where there's no power, there's no projection, it doesn't go anywhere. And so then it's almost like, well, after that, of course, we're in this emperor energy, right? If it brings the spark online. I feel like I'm just like, what? Okay. So the Nine of Cups is here breaking the tension with the medicine wheel and justice. With the medicine wheel and justice, it's reading like, again, that the thoroughput, I think that's the thing, is the same. There's something that we experienced in the past, and it feels like time after time after time, we experience the not pleasant side of it. So this Six of Cups, instead of it being like nostalgia and thinking back on the happy days, it's reading very much like trauma. I mean, because they're kids and because it's the Six of Cups, it's reading more specifically like a childhood trauma. A childhood trauma that affected us in our developmental years. So there's something that remains undeveloped because it was always locked behind this trauma. And so again, part of what the divine was helping us do was to heal that and to put ourselves in a position where we can allow that to mature. It's almost like there's a baby inside the womb of the mother and the umbilical cord. Like if we somehow developed selective umbilical cords, I don't know if that's how it works. I think it's not. In some ways, that's not how it works because they're like, well, if you put bad stuff in your body, then that bad stuff is going to go to your baby and it's going to affect their development. So you, as the mother, should abstain so that you don't pass it on. But it's like if the umbilical cord itself could be like, okay, we're not going to pass this through. That can go. This can't go. That can't go. That can't go. This can go. This can go. That can't go. It's selective. So it only allows that which is good for the baby to pass through the cord and to fuel the baby, and everything bad it bypasses. So it's almost like as a mother, your life doesn't change because what's bad for your baby, the baby won't take, and what's good for your baby, it will. Okay, well, if you're not putting anything good in your body, then you still have to change because you got to put something good into your body for it to go to the baby. But the bad stuff, like it won't pass through. So it's almost like that. I already got lost in the metaphor and I don't know where I was going with this. um oh, yeah. So because it's something that never matured, that was the selective umbilical cord. So it's like as we grow and as we progress in other areas of our life, and as we develop and as we mature in other areas of our life, it's like those same experience, those same nutrients that got everything else to grow, it didn't go wherever this is. Again, because of the trauma blockage. So that part of ourselves remains almost like atrophied and underdeveloped. And so the divine helps us work to a place where whatever and wherever that is within us, where it can now develop and mature. And as it develop and matures now, is this the yeah, it's the three. I almost saw it as the Eight of Pentacles for some reason. As it now develops and matures, it comes into or it finds its space with the rest of the developed us. And when we can allow that to happen harmoniously, so maybe we give ourselves grace and we give ourselves patience and we don't talk bad. It's like we don't put pressure on ourselves to get something perfect and to get it right the first time. We allow ourselves the time to heal and we explore that. We discover who we are with this part of ourselves now also coming online, now also developing. And like for me, myself personally, like When I was a kid, I was super social, loved meeting new people. But then when that Six of Cups shadow side kicked in for me, that's when I was like, I'm not getting close to anybody, even with family. I don't want to feel like I'm dependent on anybody, because that way, if for whatever reason, if I don't have family there to help me and support me, I want to be okay. I don't want to form a dependence on somebody because I think I need them. It wasn't great. Honestly, it effed me up for a while. But now, as that, like, all of that fear, because that's what 2019 was for me. That was the end of 2018 when I hit my darkest night, October 2018. I was like, I have to work through this stuff. So 2019, I intentionally set through to work on and work through all of my fears. Uh, and so now, as some of those things are coming back in, like, I was so used to, like, I knew who I was, and I was so used to everything when I was like isolated, and when I was cut off, and when I wasn't doing this, and when I wasn't doing that. I knew who I was because of everything that fear told me I wouldn't do and I wouldn't be, and stuff like that. But now it's like, well, I don't have those limitations. I don't have those blockages anymore. The reasons for me to not do this no longer exist. So I guess I'm gonna try. And then it's like, well, who am I now if I'm like, I'm doing this and I'm doing, and it's like, that's why so many times for me it was like, you don't have to figure it out. You don't have to know. Just just live life. Hold presence in the moment. Make choices and decisions the best you can in the moment. Overcome fear the best you can in the moment. And as you, just like a baby learning to walk and then run and ride a bike and fly or whatever, swim, it's like, as you're in those moments, you discover by being. And then that comes into balance with the rest of who you are, leading to this Ten of Pentacles energy. It makes you more complete within yourself. And then we're ready for this Fool, a whole new experience, whole new world, and everything else. That Fool that's down here. And then, with that cycle of the medicine wheel complete, or with these multiple areas, traditionally there are 4 colors, they all represent something different. I think black is usually like death or birth. Like, black is always present on all the medicine wheels. And then, like, the other colors will sort of change. But it's like, there are these different time periods of our life. There's these different cardinal direction, these different area sectors, whatever. But they're all sort of in this wheel together. And they all affect and impact one another. But as, like, more and more areas and segments come into a healed balance, and as they connect more and more, as those watery pathways, those watery bridges are connected between different parts of ourselves, and subsequently, because of that, as we can connect deeper and more authentically, or in different ways and to different degrees with different people outside of ourselves, then as this justice comes in, it's going to come in and it's going to satisfy, it's going to bless, for fruitfulness and abundance to flourish more and more areas and aspects of our lives. We experience abundance in more of a totality, rather than like like, my relationships are really flourishing right now, but like my personal finance is suffering, or like whatever else is suffering, or like, like my personal finance is flourishing right now, but my relationships are suffering, or this is suffering, or whatever. Is going to bring a more encompassing abundance where lots of things are going to go up. Because again, it's like, we're more whole there. This part is matured and it comes into us. It's no longer separated from the rest by this Ouroboros sort of snake, right? And I love that the King of Cups is here, attached to this Emperor, because I think, as the Emperor is the king of all kings, so the Emperor already has the King of Cups within him, but the King of Cups being right here, and I noticed it immediately, but I'll just say it again, or I'll mention it here. Like, there's this importance with the King of Cups to remain connected to people or to remain open. It's like that element of connection is important. Yes, it's for us to know how capable we are and the power of our choice and how we can actually impact our lives and the lives of others, because our choices have consequences that ripple outward, because our choices affect how we live our lives, and we all share planet Earth. We share the element of Earth. So it can and often does impact other people because we're not the only ones here. And so it's like it's empowering us to know how powerful we are and how sovereign we are and can be, but it's not to do that at detriment of other people. It's not to pump our heads so big that we think that we're greater than, or we think that we're above others, or we think that other people are inconsequential and that they don't matter. Because, like, that's not the point. The point isn't to build you up to the point where you think you're better, greater, or whatever. It's like we all sort of raise, we all elevate. Like I said, how like I was watching a reading and someone was like, "Oh, be careful not to put somebody on a pedestal, because if you put somebody else on a pedestal, then you're placing them above you." And with Patrick, with me being me watching it, I'm like, no, maybe at some point, yes, but Patrick puts himself on a pedestal. So if I'm putting you on a pedestal and I'm putting them on a pedestal and I'm finding all of these things about everybody else that I appreciate, like that doesn't create this, like I'm not making myself lower or I'm not making somebody else higher. It's just like I can find the things that I appreciate about certain people and hold them in that sort of appreciation. From me, from my perspective, like I love that this person is a go-getter and that they go after what they want. That doesn't mean that other people don't. That doesn't mean that I can't. But it's just like that's sort of like if everybody that I know is a star, like that's the attribute that that star holds in the constellation or whatever. You know what I mean? It's not to elevate. It's like it is, but it isn't, right? Because self worth is self worth. It's within the self. It's completely, it has no holds or no bearing on anything outside of the self. And a lot of self worth is comparative worth. A lot of people are like, oh, I like, maybe they like their self worth is like they're smart. Like, I love how smart I am. But their smartness is dependent on other people being dumber than they are. You know what I mean? And so whenever they meet someone who's like smarter than them, now their worth is challenged because their self worth of being smart was everybody else is dumber than me. But oh, here's someone who's smarter than me. So I'm going into this whole ego spiral or whatever, because now my self worth is compromised because of something or someone outside of me. But I'm like, okay, but if it's self worth, like, did you change in self? Like, are you still not who you were? Why would anything outside of you affect your self worth? It's a people thing, though. You know, we're not, I mean, we live in a world with companies and consumerism. It's dependent on us needing or wanting something, trying to be who we think we're not, or whatever mask of truth from last time. And so we try to buy it, we try to acquire it from outside. And on the other side, when I did this, where the fool in the world is, it was the star and the queen of swords. And with the star and the queen of swords, it was just like, as long as we're reaching outside of ourselves for something, we will always and continuously be reaching outside. So, but when we turn inside with the queen of swords in this deck, as she went inside, the star fell onto her sword. It's like she called it in because she already had it within her. And on that side, it was like, you know, that was more sort of the focus of the lesson. It's kind of all encompassing over here in a lot of ways, or it's more general over here. It's less specific, which is, you know, the size of the platform is a lot bigger, so it's understandable. Anyway, it's a lot more general, a lot more sort of like umbrella. Um, but yeah, so back into this. But yeah, that's just something that I noticed. It's something that I noticed, and one thing, it's something that, because I have a decent amount of air in me, and so And so sometimes I do get hung up on like definitions or whatever. And so I'm like, well, if it's self worth, then shouldn't it be independent of whatever? Like it's not comparative. But again, as people, that's what we do. We compare ourselves to each other, and we compare ourselves sometimes to ourselves. Like, oh, I'm past my prime because back in the day I could do this or I used to have that. Like, that's when that nostalgia can again turn towards like not great, trying to relive the glory days and never able to appreciate the majesty of now and where you are now and what you have available to you now and where you can go now and move forward into the future, because you're always trying to get back to something that is already gone. I mean, that's like there are so many ways to approach the shadow side from the Six of Cups. Sometimes through like pleasantries, like nostalgia, but again, we can still be trapped in trying to relive the glory days. Sometimes it's a more easy, direct route through trauma and through pain. But again, with the Knight of Wands, we're learning to proceed forward anyway, past that shadow side, which again, oh my gosh, that is the King of Swords, or that's the King of Wands. Now I got to go find him. Hey, look, the Six of Pentacles is at the bottom of the deck again with the defector. I got to find that. That's literally what this is. That's why and how it disrupts the projection that is that shadow side. It literally takes the light out of it. But then that adds another layer, because that shadow side, again, it's like it's our fear that gives it weight. Like something outside of us can give it form. Our fear can also give it form. But it's just like a hologram. It's just a projection. It can't actually interact with the world. But our fear can give it the power to. Our fear can give it the power to do all kinds of stuff to us. But that's us doing it to us through the vehicle or through the medium that is that thing. You know what I mean? So that's why sometimes it's like if we feel down on ourselves for a certain, like we think that, again, I'm just going to go for what's easy. Like we think we're not smart enough. We think we're dumb. And so, like, maybe when you're little, it's this one person. And you're like, why are you always trying to make me feel dumb, or why are you always making me feel stupid? And then we grow up and we leave, and that person isn't in our life anymore. But then it's like a boss, or it's a coworker, or it's somebody else. It's always somebody else, because that not being smart enough stems within us. And we just sort of like whatever form is around us that can take that projection, it becomes that for us. But it's not the person, it's not the thing, it's in us again. So that's what disrupts the projection. That's when we stop sort of meeting it or seeing it outside of us, is when it's resolved within us. Is it at the top of the deck now? Or did I pass it? Hold up! Where the King of Wands at? I'm going to try to pay more attention because I overlooked it. Here it is. Next to the High Priestess. Death. I'm actually going to take these. I'm just going to show you. I'll just show you these. So, on the road to finding this King of Wands, because again, it's like as this Knight of... I did not mean to take all these cards. Wow, I got played. So I was going to take the two cards before the King of Wands and the King of Wands. And that's when I was like, I'm not going to do the whole window. I'll just take the three leading up to it, or the two leading up to it. Accidentally pulled the two after it. So that the temperance balance is maintained. There's two before and two after, even though I only wanted the two before. It's fine. So So it's like as the Knight of Wands passes that shadow side, it's like the shadow side is the fire. It pulls the light outside of the shadow side and puts it back into itself in that infinity sign. It puts it back into itself in a balanced way, which again, that was the balance that came up yesterday in the fairy card. I think it was like was it the moon in balance? It was something like that. So I know I'm getting hungry too. It's fine. So I'm gonna. This is the picture. I'll bring it back in a second. If I need it, I guess it's been up there for a second. So death and the high priestess. This is the like this death process was to. Oh my gosh, I love it. Was to help us sort of rebalance. It feels like in this high priestess though, it feels like there's this sorting of things that we need to do within ourselves, and it's because of all of the filters and stuff that we put on it through that Six of Cups, through either like this rosy, it's like either what rose tinted glasses or like sunglasses. Either we make it a lot rosier and happier than it was, or we make it a lot darker than it was. Again, it feels like a lot of this is almost building off of that mask of truth that we saw in Sylvanius yesterday. Steph, what's up? How are you doing? You were on my mind earlier today. And it's funny because it's like I'll see, like, whenever you upload a video, like, because you're doing the signs right now, you'll upload Scorpio, and then I'll see like somebody else upload Scorpio, or like you'll do Gemini, and then I'll see like somebody else is doing Gemini. So there's like that thread is definitely connected. Anyway, how are you doing? I hope you're doing well. So it feels like there's a lot of reordering within the self. And at first I didn't catch it, but like, because again, we usually see that infinity sign with the magician, with the strength card, and maybe another major. But it's like it's putting it into balance. Now you can see it. It's pulling the light out of that, just like this high priestess was. And again, like the high priestess is the knowing of the divine. She represents that knowing, that that omniscience that sometimes we don't always know why. But again, it's like that was the thing, it saw it. And not only did the high priestess see what needs to be developed within us, it also saw a way to get us to do it for ourselves. Now, it still all boils down to choice, right? Going back to the scorned Venus, the Venus who went for the Mars that was always there for her. Like Venus, she could have just spiraled and spiraled and spiraled and spiraled. But eventually she would have had to make the choice and decision to get up and to get back on her feet. And there can be things external to her that will help her sort of do that. But it's not until she's of the mind to do it for herself that it happens. And again, that goes back into it's like it's not until that changes within her that something outside of her, like some form out, that she assigns the form outside of her, right? Just like for the person that was never smart enough. And so there was always a form that reflected that back to them that made them feel less intelligent, less smart, not good enough because I'm not this person and I'm not that person, I'm not whatever. When that switches inside of herself and she's like, when she's ready, and again, it can be deep, deep, to the point where she doesn't even necessarily consciously know that change has happened within her. But when that change happens within her, now there's a form to help her. And that's the Six of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck. Well, it was at the bottom of the deck until I sort of shuffled everything all around. The Six of Pentacles that was there with the defector, when she's of a mind to, when she's in the space, that's when the help arrives. That's when the assistance of the gatekeeper come. or when the gatekeeper itself comes. So Death, the High Priestess, and that King of Wands. And then the two cards after. Oh! Here's the Six of Pentacles. It's right here. The thing changes within Venus. The thing changes within us. And then we find outside of ourselves something that mirrors, reflects, helps us get there rather than helps us like stay down or puts us down. It was right here. I knew I saw it. That's why I accidentally pulled it, even though I tried to leave it. And then behind that Six of Pentacles is the Eight of Pentacles. Oh my gosh. Now it's the Eight of Pentacles. We come into a space of mastery from there, from that point. And again, it feels like this Eight of Pentacles falls between the Three of Pentacles and this Ten of Pentacles. I mean, it does numerologically. Oh, I love this. Because it's almost like he's assembling these, and then they'll like go up on the wall. But that was when it's like, you know, we just show up. We live life and we do our best. And day by day, moment by moment, situation by situation, we allow that healed part of us. We allow this new whatever that we find or discover. We allow it's like it to grow and to take up the space that it takes. Because of that, it makes me think of the eighth gate in Gate 8 and the Rare Gazelle, the Babylonian gates. So, who, Eve or me? The Shadow Benders? I didn't. The Rainbow Bender? I ain't watched the Rainbow Bender yet, but I'm excited. So then we end up with Temperance and the Moon. Again, Temperance is so, like, I understand Temperance from this, like, how a change or development in one element, namely water, reflects, mirrors, produces, encourages, catalyzes with that 3 energy, even though it's a 5, 14. So yeah, still change. How it creates a change in another element like fire. But here it's reading so like out of phase. Because like she's doing all this here, but the rainbow is like behind her. And like, yeah, like the angel is positioned at the end of Temperance, but it's not feeling like she's at this end of the rainbow and we're at the other end of the rainbow. Like it's not, it feels like she's not on that bridge. She's like in front of it, behind it, in a different dimension, in a different phase, in a different plane, at a different time or something. Like this Temperance energy feels like it's outside. But again, if all of this, because medicine wheel is giving Wheel of Fortune type vibes, or maybe it's justice with the medicine wheel, because justice is paired with the medicine wheel, that goes back to that Six of Pentacles. As we're in this space of healing, or as we're like progressively healing, so in the process of healing, or as those healings, as those cycles, as those lessons complete, the energy of justice is going to turn around and bring it to us externally. Almost like the Wheel of Fortune, but the Wheel of Fortune has an element of randomness to it. The Wheel of Fortune is like, oh, this is just how it works. There are these greater cycles that we come into. This justice is like, because you did this, this will happen. It's the consequence. It's the reaction. It's the effect to whatever you put in motion. And it's going to meet an energy for energy. So it's like it is turning, but it's turning in a way that's very like deserved. And I guess like every planet is retrograde right now besides Mars and Venus. So as like Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, Uranus, as they start to go direct, like maybe that'll be the astrological correspondence to this justice. It's like, oh, Saturn is direct now, so everything that like you did when it was retrograde, like it's paying it back. And I read an article. Well, it was a headline. It was like, so not to get political or whatever, um, but it's just the article. Okay, it's energy. How Biden is doing the student loan forgiveness thing, right? And so I saw an article, and it was like, if you paid anything in the freeze, because it's been frozen since like things popped off in 2020 or whatever, they're like, if you paid anything while it was frozen, it's going to be refunded. They're going to reimburse because it's like, and so it almost speaks to this like, while things were stuck, while the planets were retrograde, there's an energy that's coming. There's a decision that's been made because the collective has reached a certain level or whatever. There's a decision that was made all the way up here, and that stuff is playing out down here, and we try to reach up here to see what's going on down here, but it's really like up here or whatever. It's like it will be reimbursed. So it's not only like moving forward, but in the in between time, you will also see something rewarded. So it feels like that energy is coming here too. Um, but maybe like this temperance, because again, it's paired to the Six of Cups. So maybe temperance feels out of phase with the Rainbow Bridge because it's like it's shifting that past to present connection with the anchor being on the side of the past and how the past continues to affect our present and therefore subsequently control our future. It's like it's going to be shifting into like a present future mode, or something about that dynamic is going to change. Maybe it's just going to be present and there's not going to be any past or future, but I'm going to say it's shifting into the present future, but it's not a defined future. So it's shifting. It's like it is shifting present, but it reads as present future because of what, because of how the realm of potential and how the realm of possibility expanded. Basically, we're going to be seeing more and more and more of those things sort of like realized, and that's like new possibilities rather than everything that we already experienced. Uranus in Taurus, North Node in Taurus, Uranus conjuncting the North Node in Taurus, like again, it's like with the movement of the node being in Uranus, I get why I've heard some people say like Uranus hates being in Taurus because Taurus is so fixed and Uranus is this planet of change and whatever. But with the North Node being there, it's like it is the time for that change. And the planet that symbolizes that revolutionary, radical change is there. So it's actually like perfect time. Uranus is the bull that was invited into the China shop because we were too attached to the worth and to the value of things that were in some ways purely decorative or things that were used to symbolize some kind of status or something. I don't know what China is for. It seems like every time I hear of somebody having a China cabinet, it's just like it's there to look good and they never use it. Or they only use it during special occasions, or it's like, oh, like look what I could afford. Look at all of this. You know what I mean? And it's like, all right, let in the bull. Because what is it like? What worth, what value is there actually in this if we never use it, if it doesn't have any bearing besides appearances? And that goes back to everything else. So that's basically this. But it's this, I love this moon card here too. Because it's just unknown. We don't know. Again, the moon is connected to that Knight of Cups. If we're told to go somewhere, if we get the feeling, the urge, if our intuition, discernment is telling us to do something, that's it. Just show up, do whatever you feel guided to do. Don't be so focused on outcomes. Don't be so focused or attached to. And it's making me think of that Six of Pentacles again after that Four of Swords. It's like, don't be so attached to something being what you think it will be. And I don't think it's like, it's not bad to hold that expectation, because it's almost like, as you hold that expectation of what it could be or what you think it is, it'll get you to sort of progress in that way. And maybe that's what's for you to do or to get in that moment. And maybe it will be whatever, and it becomes that. Maybe it won't be. And you become something, and it becomes something that you need to, before you move on to the next thing, right? So it's not bad to have expectation or whatever. Again, it feels like it's kind of motivating us in a way to do something. And here's a bit of projection from me again. Like, y'all heard me talk about how if I'm going through a certain experience, and if it's tough or if it's challenging, sometimes, or even if it isn't tough or if it isn't challenging, if I can be like, oh, like something I can get out of this experience is this, then that becomes like a motivator for me. Like, I can choose what motivates me sometimes. It doesn't always have to be like, this is what the universe is saying, this is what God put me here for. Sometimes it is that, sometimes they do line up, and it's like, yeah, that's what, that's what you're here for. But for me, like, and that started my freshman year. And it's funny because I was thinking about that yesterday. Like, I had an absolutely terrible time at Purdue, and I hated it, and I wanted to go home. But as much as I hated it and as much as I wanted to go home, like, I chose Purdue because it felt like where I was supposed to be. And no matter how miserable I was and no matter how much I struggled, it never stopped feeling like the place I was supposed to be. And so my freshman year, there was this dude that I had a crush on or whatever, and he lived on my floor. And I was like, I know that it's like dumb to like stay here because I have a crush on some guy. I know that that's like kind of stupid or whatever. But if that's what it takes for me to like stay here right now, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with letting some rando be the reason why I choose to stay here, because I still feel like I'm supposed to be here. I know it's not necessarily because of him, but I don't mind it being him if it makes it easier for me to stay, because everything else is suffering and misery and tragedy and darkness and not great. So I will allow myself this little bit of light. Um, and now that I talk about it, I guess it's interesting how that sort of theme carried through. And it evolved beyond like, oh, I'm going to stay here because whatever. And at some point, it became like, oh, well, I can learn how to do this while I'm in this situation. And I can practice time management. I can learn how to like use my voice and have presence. I can learn how to not just take stuff. I can learn how to do this again. Like, I can find all of these things while I'm here. While it doesn't necessarily feel great, but it still doesn't necessarily feel like the next thing is here. There's something I can gain from this. And so at some point, there was, for most of my life, I did struggle to believe that everything happens for a reason, because sometimes things were painful. Things sucked. But at some point, it was like, even if things don't happen for a reason, I'm going to make them happen for a reason. And that's something that really came forward when I was dealing with the loss of a friendship that I had, that it hit me hard. It hit me hard, and I was like, oh, Shadow, come on, come, Shadow. I summon thee from the depths to help me get over this, because it sucks, and I need to feel good about this not being a thing anymore. And I had done enough shadow whatever to that point where my shadow was like, no, I'm not going to do that, because I also cared. I was also invested. I'm also hurting. I'm also in pain. So I'm not going to dredge up whatever so you can feel better. And then, like, you move on and I'm still here. Like, no. And Shadow was like, if you're going to do that, you're going to do that consciously on your own. And then after that, that's when I really came into that, like, you know, things happen for a reason. Let me find the reason. What can I get out of this to help me grow? Or like, what did all of that teach me? What did it give me? And I found out it gave me a lot of stuff that in some ways it taught me that I was capable of some things that I didn't really know myself to be capable of, first of all. Um, but then it also made me excited for a day or a time when things would like work out. You know what I mean? It helped me not be so bitter and hurt about it. So yeah. That's another reason. That's another thing that I picked up that helped me to be who I am today, and helped me to have the approaches that I have to certain challenging situations. And like again, I'm not gonna have suffering somewhere for the funsies of it. Like no, I'm gonna purposefully put myself in a painful situation. Just it builds character. You know what I mean? 'Cause, I'm ready for experiences that I enjoy, and I'm ready to learn in experiences that I enjoy. I'm ready to not need dark nights to educate me, or I'm ready to not need dark nights for me to be open to expanding or whatever. You know what I mean? Like after that darkest night, I was like, I'm over it. I don't want dark nights. I don't want to need dark nights. Divine, just tell me. Tell me, show me, and all of my stubborn Patrickness, I will do my best to listen because I'm over it. But yeah, what? What does that mean? You watched the movie last night? You're cook. I'm hungry. I think I heard a device. Y'all remember that one day I was live and it was like 10 o'clock at night and I was like, I smell cream of wheat. I don't know why. I was like, I gotta be crazy because who's making cream of wheat at 10 o'clock at night? My mom was making cream of wheat. My nose was right. And I was still live for like hours. So by the time I got out there, it was cold, but still good, still tasty. But yeah, I'm getting hungry. Anyway, um, again, this is interesting. I didn't necessarily. I never know what to expect anymore. I don't know why I'm still surprised. Every time I go live, I feel like, oh, I didn't expect this. Didn't think this would be coming out. What is this? You would think that I'd not have any expectations. I know. I mean, I don't really have expectations, but I still be like, wow, like really? Okay. But again, that King of Cups feels so important. Um, because again, it's like it's to put us in the space of emperor energy, but it's not to make us. I don't know. It's almost like it's to make us emperor capable, but it's not to give us the title of an emperor. You know what I mean? It's to make us capable of doing anything and everything an emperor can do, but it's not necessarily giving us that title. It's not necessarily giving us that reign over others. Over yourself, yes. In your own life, yes. From a space of harmony, yes. And as you come into that internalized harmony, that's literally so the reason why I titled that video Guiding Waters is because the cologne that I was looking for that was lost, that's the name of the cologne. I got a Scentbird subscription because I was like, oh, why not? You know? And so it's the Harmonist Guiding Water. The Harmonist, I guess, is the brand, and the specific cologne is Guiding Water. Is it going to say, can you read it now? 'Cause I tried. Oh, there you go. You can kind of see it. I tried it earlier and it wouldn't focus. The Harmonist Guiding Water. It's not to rule over, but it's to be in a position of harmony, in a position of cooperation, but very empowered. You know what I mean? So, anyway, Oh, thank you, Eve. Thanks for being here, Eve and Sandra and Holly and Steph. Eve and Sandra and Holly and Steph. Mm-hmm. Now she thinks she's going to die by her birthday. Oh, okay. So I'm gonna put so many just like caveats on this, but as a dreamy Pisces who is no stranger to putting on the rose tinted glasses, who also isn't a stranger to putting on the shades, but when I put on the shades, usually it was like at myself. It's like everything outside of me is rose tinted glasses, but everything in me and within me is the shades. And it's like, okay, girl, well, how does that work? Anyway, like if she's sick or whatever and she thinks her time is expiring, to be given a clock and a dream is to, I mean, it's a kitchen timer, but it's almost to be like given more time, right? I don't know. Anyway, maybe sometimes I try a little too hard. Six of Swords, Nine of Swords fell out in the Witch's Tarot as I'm shuffling, which holds an energy that's very similar to the Nine of Swords and the Eight of Cups. But because of the boat, it almost feels like it doesn't have to be as hard or it doesn't have to be as difficult. If you're still in a process of prologuing and emerging, if you're still in your phoenix being rebirthed or reborn stage, maybe this will help get you to try to find what resonates or a perspective that makes that transition a little easier. So the movement is the same. The Eight of Cups is movement and the Six of Swords is movement, but the Six of Swords, and they both carry a certain somberness to them, but the Six of Swords feels like it's a little easier to move with than like the Eight of Cups. You know what I mean? Maybe it'll help, maybe not. I don't know. Bottom of the deck, Page of Swords, Queen of Cups, Two of Wands, Page of Swords, Two of Cups. Page of Swords is a new new perspective, considering things that maybe you didn't consider before, or considering things that maybe you would have been quick to dismiss before, or maybe it's like unconventional, or it's new, unconventional knowledge, new. Queen of Cups, she's reading as real cardinal water today. So cardinal water. She is the crab. Um, she is the crab, but um, it's feeling like cardinal, like the Ace of Cups. It's feeling like Ace of Cups, like it's a whole new way to connect. It's a new like way of going about relationships. But I think it's this queen because she's posturing to drink it. It looks like she's kind of like sniffing it before she takes a sip. But with the Ace of Cups, it's just like there. With the Queen of Cups, it's like you're about to take the first drink. You're about to take the first sip. If you haven't already. And that adds a layer to this that plays very nicely with everything that was here, but just takes it like way deep. Because if y'all know what the Ace of Cups means for me, especially in the Wild Unknown Tarot, and we're being postured or positioned to be in an Emperor energy, but remember the King of Cups in that Emperor. It ain't just the King of Wands doing whatever you want and just the King of Swords scheming and plotting and doing all kinds of stuff, or just the King of Pentacles having the stuff. The King of Cups is in there too. The Emperor has a heart. The Emperor cares very, very, very much about his empire. And that's why he does what he does. It's not just purposeless, boundless expansion to have more land than anybody else or to be the one ruler of all. Like, that's not the point. That's not the purpose. It's the people in his empire, it's their livelihoods. You know what I mean? He cares. Um, but she's about to drink the cup. And as soon as she drinks it, when that water is flowing through her system or whatever, no wonder why there's a page of swords right there. Anyway, if it resonates, take it. If it don't. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. And a package parachuted to her. Inside was a cake, all ate up but a piece of a piece and a cupcake with a timer. No, all dreams. You are the dream interpreter now, Steph. No problem. Of course. I think that's maybe a little bit of the reason why. Well, like when I came into my air and my fire, it was very much so for a reason. Like I was very much of the mind, like, I don't think I have to say anything if everybody else is saying it, or like if I'm not adding anything new or what. Like I was happy to be a silent watcher, comment sometimes, but never necessarily speak on, you know, what I thought or what I was seeing or what I was feeling in the collective. Like I did, but not really. It wasn't until again it was like North Node shifting into Gemini, Mars in Pisces, and when I saw like people who followed a more traditional astrology, and like that's what astrology is. Astrology is like literally as a science. Astrology is like when this planet was here or when this aspect was a thing, this is what was happening in the world. Every time we get this aspect, this is happening or this happens. And it's drawing the parallels and drawing the lines between that. But it just felt so like, especially at that point, like so like so that's really like those who don't learn from their history are doomed to repeat it. And it felt like that's what astrology was like, the spiritual sort of embodiment of, like doomed to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, playing on aspects from 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. And at that point it was really like, have we not grown, have we not evolved, have we not changed at all in the last 1,000+ years, that we continue to experience the same over and over and over when we come into these aspects? Have the energies of those planets not elevated or done something? Like, is that like, and at that point again, it was like, and I was, because I remember I sent somebody an email and I was like, I know that it's not you. I know that I'm in this point in my life right now where I'm seeing what I need to see to get me to the point I need to be in. It was a time for me to start speaking up, for me to start using my own voice and to start doing whatever. And for me, that was triggered by coming across people. And maybe it wasn't even meant in that way. Maybe it's just the way I interpreted it and how I was hearing it, because again, what I needed. But it was like, it was triggered by people who were like, don't do anything, just take it. Things are going to be bad and then they're going to get worse. And at some point, maybe we'll get a sigh of relief or we'll get a breath. But it was like tarot is old. It's not as old as astrology, but it's like it's been around for a minute. And like when I saw the Mars again, I talk about it all the time. Mars in Pisces, I was like, that's the Ten of Cups. Everybody I've heard talk about Mars and Pisces was like, Pisces is illusion, Neptune is fantasy, nothing is real. And when Mars is in Pisces, nothing that you do is going to matter, because you're so heavy in the fog, you're so heavy in the whatever. Just like wait until Mars goes into Aries. And then I saw like 10 of Cups is Mars and Pisces. I was like, what? So all of these people, it's telling people to pass up on 10 of Cups energy. I was like, what? No way. And so after that, that's when I was like, okay, well, it's time for me to start saying something because nobody is saying this. And this is such potent, like the energy, like the potential of this energy to like come in is so potent. Going back to the Fata Morgana, like it can be more than just a castle floating in the sky, but it's going to forever be a castle floating in the sky if we don't do anything to pull it in. If we don't pull it in or if we don't elevate ourselves, it's always going to be out of reach. It's always going to be up there. It's never going to come down. But it's like, it doesn't have to be that way. And then that's when, you know, I went into the fire and the air, and then I went even further into fire and the air. And now I feel like I'm coming back to my earth and water. I am actually coming back to my earth and water. And I'm like, ooh, girl, I couldn't be coming back at a better time. But anyway, it's not about me. I mean, it is, but it isn't. And I can accept when it is, and I can accept when it's not. You know what I mean? So anyway, I am hungry. You due to personal reasons. Oh, well, thanks, Steph. I appreciate it. And again, like the sweat lodge and the rainbow. It's a sweat rainbow. You thought that the rainbow came from the rain? No, the rainbow is coming from the sweat lodge. This is where the water comes from. But isn't that the theme of this reading? Wasn't that the prologue? And isn't that what gets us into? And like, there were no answers in this at all. Like, that's why the moon was there again. It's like that. It felt like that's what the moon and the Knight of Cups was. Like, there are no answers, there are no promises, there are no guarantees. Be brave, be strong, take the leap, find out. But know that justice will prevail. Justice will award energy for energy. And it's sometimes I think we get into like certain practices or we fall into certain rituals. And we're like, oh, well, if I do this and if I do that, then things will get better, things will improve. And maybe for a time, maybe for a moment it does because of, again, justice, it compensates energy for energy. And so our energy shifted when like we got into something and we're doing this and we're doing that. But it's almost like how if you do the same exercise every day, your body adapts to it. So it stops having that same effect. And then it's almost like at some point it's just words, or at some point it's just this and it's just that. The energy kind of sort of whatever. I don't know. Who is this? Oof, the curse and the journey. So as I was shuffling, like the cards were laying like this, and then these cards like stood up. So I was like, what is that? The curse and the journey. And then the two cards behind that, it's the ancient ones and the serpent with the sweat lodge still at the bottom. Sweat lodge and the rainbow, because I was literally just about to shuffle it. The sweat lodge, the rainbow, and the rainmaker. That's where rain comes from. You know how like the water cycle, so you sweat in the sweat lodge and then the sweat evaporates into the air, and when the clouds get heavy enough from absorbing all of that sweat, it rains. And then after the rain, you get the rainbow. Again, it's just like it's for a purpose, it's for a point, it's for a reason. There's something that the divine is trying to like breathe life back into. I talked about the nymph that Russ talks about all the time with the dragonfly. And how Russ is like, you know, they break the surface and then they like breathe in the water and they inflate themselves and puff up that tail. It's like it's trying to breathe life. It's like almost like CPR. But you know how they say, like, when you do CPR, like the mouth to mouth thing is like, it's over. Now you just do the chest compression. So we're not even getting mouth to mouth from spirit anymore. So you can't slip no tongue in the no. It's just chest compressions. And it's chest compressions until you like give the sign that you are alive. So if you're trying to fake it, trying to get get a little mouth to mouth from spirit, like I can't breathe, spirit. I need mouth to mouth. Spirit is like it's chest compressions now, baby. Ain't no more mouth to mouth. So let me know that you're alive down there, or I'm gonna keep pushing. The water, sweat lodge and water. Anyway, to help pass on people. Oh snap! Honestly, with me being as averse to like ghosts and stuff as I am, I'm not. The Sandlot. You know, people that I don't know if anybody did it in real life, but in like in the media, people would do it all the time. Like in movies or whatever, they were pretending like they would pretend like they're drowning to get mouth to mouth from the lifeguard and then whatever. But it's like now it's all chest compressions. There's no more mouth to mouth. And so if you ain't been updated on how CPR is changed, and if you're not CPR trained, then you probably ain't been updated. I'm pretty sure they don't do mouth to mouth anymore. I'm pretty sure it's just chest compressions now. And they will break a rib. But they're like better a broken rib than a lost life, right? At least you're alive. I don't know. Anyway, I don't have to go any further with the metaphor. Thank you. You get it. Oof. The Rainmaker at the bottom of the deck. There we go. The Witness and Pachamama. These came out, but that's making me think again. It's that like, and some points it's the mirrored, and some point it's like how things mirror outside of us. And that mirror was here. Like that's what the shadow side and the Six of Pentacles was. The Six of Cups and the Six of Pentacles. It was a mirror. When you feel something within you and it is mirrored and reflected outside of you. But that the it's like we're cleaning the mirror by cleaning the inside. And so now like when we're in a space of wanting to progress, move forward, really like when our energy really changes, that's when the student is ready, the master appears, right? When we're ready, the healer appears to help us facilitate that healing within ourselves. Because that's what the mirror does. The mirror doesn't do anything but reflect. And so the person that we compare ourselves negatively to, all they do is reflect back at us and we make ourselves feel some kind of way. Sometimes the mirror will speak. Sometimes the mirror will act. Sometimes the mirror will do things, but it's energy for energy. It might not be the words that you say, and it might not be the actions that you do or take, but those words and actions will reflect that energy back to you. And it's funny because the mask of truth in that, when I was doing that reading, there was some cards that it had like that mirroring energy. But it was interesting because before that, it was that like when you're traveling faster than the speed of light, or when you reach a certain point, you escape the mirror reality. You escape that everything is just a mirror, everything is just a reflection. And then you come into truth, the truth of who I am, the truth of who you are, the truth of who somebody else is. And we all show up in our own individual truths where we don't just have to be mirrors and reflections of each other, where you see more in me than the parts that like relate to you or whatever. You know what I mean? And so all you see in me is what can be reflected back to you, because you are only capable of seeing and interacting with yourself. But when that thing within you develops and matures, and when you come into this greater wholeness within yourself, the Three of Pentacles into the Ten of Pentacles that was at the top of this, I still have the picture even though I put the cards away. That Three of Pentacles into the Ten of Pentacles into the Eight of Pentacles, or the Three of Pentacles into the Ten of Pentacles into the Fool right there. That's when you get to experience a world of individuals, a world of other people. And it's more than just you. Like, again, it's a personal belief that the creator is capable of doing more than making one thing and creating a trillion different mirrors and variations of that one thing. It seems like it's an incredibly limiting perspective to me, but that's just me. Doesn't mean I'm right. Doesn't mean I'm wrong. That's how I choose to live my life. Oh, snap. The bottom of the deck is the Rainmaker. Again, right? Under that Rainmaker is the Rattle. 42 and 43. Under the Rattle is Many Paths. So we go from 42 to 43, and then we flip that 43 into this 34. That feels like, it's almost like if there is a river or an ocean, if there's a body of water, I'm going to try to use my geology science terminology. If there's a body of water that has many tributaries, it's like following it back up to the source and then taking like another river, another lake, another whatever, like the Six of Swords, right? You go up that river and then you're like, oh my gosh, there are like a million different ways that this branches out. And then you take a different one. That's what it feels like, how that plays out energetically. That's for, if it's for you, it's for it to unfold however it unfolds for you. If it's not for you, let it go. Don't take it. You know what I mean? Just because somebody say it don't mean you got to take it. Even if a part of this resonated for you, and if that didn't, don't take it. Because maybe the whole thing ain't for you. Or maybe it's like, I was like almost there for you, but then like, whatever. Take what resonates as it resonates. It's not like a lump sum thing, right? Like you can, like if you have a food, if you have a food and you're like, I want this piece and I want this piece and I want that piece and I'm going to leave the rest. You can do that. Right? Take what resonates from the whole as it resonates and leave what doesn't. You don't have to be like, I want this piece and that piece and the other piece, so I'll take the whole thing. It's like, no, you ain't got to do that, girl. Don't. You know what I mean? But it's your life. You make your choices and you make your decisions and you do what you got to do for you and you do what you want to do and all kinds of stuff, girl. Don't let me tell you how to live your life. So I'm looking at this Three of Cups. And the Nine of Swords is behind the Three of Cups. Don't let the Nine of Swords keep you from experiencing this Three of Cups anymore. Or try your best to reach a point where it doesn't. So. Oh, a lot. Brownies. Ooh, I want brownies. Like the edge, like last time my mom made some brownies, the edge pieces were so good. I just wanted the edges. But then after all of the edges were gone, I ate the middle because, I wanted brownies. This feels like, so there's a mother, maiden, crone energy here. This feels like mother and crone. So the hand, the one extending the cup, has to be the maiden. So in the cup in between, okay, well, so it's like all their waters are combining. Mother, maiden, and crone are coming together. Okay, they're coming together into one unified energy. All right, but they can't do that when this Nine of Swords is here for whatever reason. All right. I don't know if I already got a final card in this deck, but I guess I'm going to shuffle it again. The Tarot of the Abyss. I actually really like this deck. Okay, that was quick. Let's see who you are. It's the Tower. And the bottom of the deck is the Four of Cups. The Emperor is behind the Four of Cups. So I'm going to show you the Tower, and then I'm going to show you the Four of Cups. When I show you the Four of Cups after I show you the Tower, if you want to see what I'm focusing on, you don't have to, but if you want to. When I show you the Four of Cups after I show you the Tower, look at the fourth cup in the Four of Cups and the tree branches. So here's the Tower, right? And here's the Four of Cups. I'm seeing this Tower like inside the cup, because as this cup is tilted over, they're also like falling out of the Tower, right? So that's one of those like micro, macro types of energy, like the entire universe is contained within a single atom or droplet of water or whatever. And look, it's a tree in both of them too. The cup is the home. Home is where the heart is. Cups being emotions. That Knight of Cups. Oh, did I finish that thought earlier? There are like no solutions, no answers in any of this. But it was like with the Knight of Cups, it was like make that offer regardless of how scared you are. It's not about the outcome. It's about what you got to do. And with the moon, who knows how it's going to play out? But just because you don't know how it's going to play out doesn't mean that you don't live life or you don't show up. When you only play by certainties or when you only do what's certain, you limit your experience greatly. And even if the first thing doesn't work out, justice will win out. And it will eventually be mirrored. It will eventually be matched. It will eventually be Six of Pentacles reciprocated, given back to you. But maybe there are some things for you to discover in that time when it isn't. Right? And yes, it's going to hurt potentially. Yes, there will be pain, but you don't have to allow it to make you jaded or bitter or to change you. You don't have to let it crush or stop your beautiful heart. You know what I mean? So, oh, that was immediate. Who is that? Oh, well, it's the moon, the necromancer. Of course, it's the moon as I'm talking about the moon. It feels like there's something that we've lost or there's something that we lose in our need to know, in our only pursuing what is certain or only pursuing what is known, in our hesitation and reservation. But again, it's like it's not the presence of fear, it's not the hesitation, it's when we allow that fear to stop us from moving. when we don't do the thing because we're so afraid. When that fear overpowers everything else, that's when it becomes a problem. That's when we get trapped. That's when it's easy to feel like there are no real choices and options in life. But that's because fear makes all of our choices and decisions. But this, it feels like something opening up under the moon. But because it's opening up under the moon, it makes it even more like, I want to say uncertain, but it's not uncertain because it's like up in the air. It's uncertain because it's unknown. Because we don't know what it is. High Priestess knows what it is. The divine knows what it is, of course, but we don't. It's something that's meant to be experienced. Bottom of the deck is the Archangel Commander. And guess who's behind the Archangel Commander? The Knight of Cups, the Shining Dew, the only unicorn in this deck, and the twin horse to the one that Death rides. So, twin of Death and the only unicorn, Archangel Commander. With the stronghold of the veil under that. That's the Page of Pentacles. King of Swords, Knight of Cups, Page of Pentacles. We're missing the Queen of Wands. The Queen is the only court not represented here, and fire is the only element not represented. The Queen of Wands was the subject of a reading that I did recently, and I remember using the Astro Matrix Tarot, I believe. And no, was it the Before Tarot? I think it was the Before Tarot. Because the Queen of Wands was so busy like planting sunflowers so that she could have the appearance of being a Queen of Wands, because the Queen of Wands is surrounded by sunflowers. But the Queen of Wands isn't surrounded by sunflowers because she's out in the garden all day planting sunflowers. The Queen of Wands is surrounded by sunflowers because they just, under her, in her presence, they just bloom. It's like a side effect to her being her. They just pop up. She doesn't have to create them, they make themselves. Just like anything and everything else going for a Queen of Wands, they're attracted to her. Her energy produces them. She ain't down in the dirt. Queen of Wands ain't down in the dirt getting her nails dirty and her hair dirty. Like, no. And if the Queen of Wands is, that's when she's like Queen of Pentacles and somewhere else. You know what I mean? Because really, she's an empress. But when you see her in her Queen of Wands phase, that's her in her Queen of Wands phase, and she ain't down in the dirt. Now, if you see her down in the dirt again, that's when she's being the Queen of Pentacles, or maybe even the Queen of Cups, or the Queen of Swords, but not when she's the Queen of Wands. Mm-mm. Or, I mean, there are reasons why you'll see a Queen of Wands down in the dirt, but it's not because of the Alchemist. That's what that reading was. It was the Alchemist. It was about alchemy. Because there was the alchemist, that it was almost like there's this alchemist and there's this alchemist. This alchemist is in an energy of like being, embodying. This alchemist does alchemy. This alchemist does this because that's what alchemists. That's the one that was like, it's the Queen of Wands planting the sunflowers because the Queen of Wands is always seen with sunflowers. And it's this card doing that. It was like, it's the, what was it, the King of Cups, but it was like a shadowy King of Cups. It was like, it's emotionally distant and hard to read and hard to connect to because that's what the Alchemist does. But the Alchemist was like, it was the Five of Swords in reverse, and I think the Two of Cups in reverse. And it was like the Alchemist doesn't give to anything that isn't capable of receiving, that doesn't reciprocate, or whatever. The Alchemist isn't emotionally distant and unavailable for the sake of being emotionally distant and unavailable. You know what I mean? So it was a lot of like watching what someone else does and looking at the environment around them and trying to replicate that, not knowing, not realizing that whatever is inside of them and everything that you see outside, the sunflowers, the emotional whatever, it's a manifestation It's a reflection. It's the form that the projection of light within them takes. But that's not the source of their power. Like, you can't plant enough sunflowers to become the Queen of Wands. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, if I get 100 sunflowers, and I will become the queen because I have the most sunflowers out of anybody. And it's like, we don't bestow the title of Queen of Wands to the lady with the most sunflowers in their garden. Like, you know that, right? And then you're like, what? But the Queen of Wands always has the most sunflowers. What are you talking about? And it's like, okay, well, we got another one of those. That's fine. They'll learn eventually. Because you will. You'll get all those sunflowers. You will be the only person on earth that has sunflowers, because you'll take them from other people, or you'll try to stop other people from growing them. And when you see that change doesn't happen, you'll go, oh, so it was more than just the sunflowers. Meanwhile, whole time divine trying to tell you. And I don't think that part will resonate for you as much, because again, that's the Four of Swords with the Six of Pentacles energy. It's like something pulls us away before we go that far. The divine is trying to teach us. It's trying to show us. So, all right. See you later, Eve. I'm also going to go. Thank you again for being here. And thank you for being here, before. I had no clue, Steph. Thanks for the info, though. I hope you all have an amazing whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that in the midst of challenge and difficulty, if there is something for you to gain, learn, master, whatever, I hope you see it, and I hope the encouragement and support for you to do that. And if there is nothing for you to get from something, I hope you see that. Because what's the point of pointless suffering? There is no point to pointless suffering. That's why it's pointless. I wish you the discernment, intuition, and trust to be able to differentiate. And I wish you the what? It's like choice. I wish you the knowing that you have choice, where you have choice, and when you have choice. And I guess I also wish you the ability to discern between choice and consequence, especially if we're talking about justice. Because sometimes we'll make a choice and our choice has certain repercussions. We do something that is the cause for a certain effect. And sometimes I think we might think that because we can't cancel or nullify or get out of a consequence to one of our actions, we might think that we don't have choice or that our actions don't matter. But it's like if it's the result of something that you've already done, it's a result. Like your choice, that result is your choice being honored. Right? If you spend $5 on a slice of cheesecake, the cheesecake is your choice being rewarded. And while you're eating that cheesecake that you spent your $5 on, you can't take that $5 and go somewhere else because you already spent it on the cheesecake. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, I don't have $5. I don't have choice. It's like, yeah, because you spent it on the cheesecake. That's where your $5 went. Now you have cheesecake. You can eat it if you want it. You can let it sit there if you want. You can throw it away. You already spent the money. That cheesecake is yours. That was your choice. Your choice was in using your money to buy the cheesecake. Now it's not like, oh, I want to change my cheesecake into a pineapple upside down cake or mint chocolate chip ice cream or food because I'm hungry. It's like I don't know if that's necessarily how choice works. It's like, oh, well, you can use like You can get a dollar size mint chocolate chip ice cream. You can get a 250 pineapple upside down cake. You can get a 50-cent portion of the other thing because you only want a little bit. You don't want that much. And you already know you don't want that much. So you don't have to spend $5 worth when you only want like 25 cents worth. You know what I mean? Because we do that. You can get like a quarter size sampler and that'll scratch your little whatever itch. Anyway, I don't have to get lost in the metaphor. I'll see y'all when I see y'all. It's interesting. Whatever's coming, whatever's happening, as we're bracing ourselves to uh, disperse the impact from the veil so it don't hit us like a sheet of concrete. Interesting things going on. Interesting times. And somewhere in the midst of that lies beautiful potential waiting to bust through the cracks that Uranus is creating in the sidewalk. Maybe get a rose blooming in the middle of the concrete jungle of New York City.